You see, the body of a young man was found floating in the pool of...
A dead man narrates his own murder from a swimming pool. The film opens with a corpse, and somehow, Billy Wilder made Hollywood fall in love with its own autopsy.
How come this gun was right there?
This is Sunset Boulevard, the 1950 masterpiece that dared to show Tinseltown exactly what it looked like with its makeup off. The story behind this film, even darker than what made it to the screen. If you love the twisted history of classic Hollywood, we're diving deep into the scandals, betrayals, and genius that made film noir immortal. The murder that inspired Norma Desmond. Here's something that'll make your skin crawl. The name Norma Desmond wasn't pulled out of thin air. It's a combination of silent film star Mabel Normand and director William Desmond Taylor, and their story is Hollywood's darkest unsolved mystery. On February 1st, 1922, William Desmond Taylor was found shot to death in his Los Angeles bungalow. Normand was the last person to see him alive and was grilled by police.
But I must get ready for my scene.
She was also a known cocaine addict, and Taylor had reportedly gone to federal authorities about her drug suppliers. The murder was never solved. Suspects included teenage starlet Mary Miles Minter, her manipulative stage mother, Charlotte Shelby, who owned a rare .38 caliber pistol, and even Taylor's own valet. Billy Wilder didn't just name his character after this scandal. He wove the entire tragedy of forgotten Hollywood into Norma Desmond's DNA. Sunset Boulevard is built on real corpses. Montgomery Clift's lover threatened suicide. Montgomery Clift was the original Joe Gillis. The role was written specifically for him. Paramount signed him for $5,000 per week. But 2 weeks before filming began, Clift bailed. His official reason? He'd already played a kept man in The Heiress. But here's the real tea. Clift was having an affair with singer Libby Holman, who was 16 years older than him. When she heard about the script, she was terrified people would think the movie was mocking their relationship. According to multiple sources, Holman told Clift she would kill herself if he made the movie. And she meant it. This was a woman who'd been investigated for the suspicious death of her first husband. Clift withdrew, leaving Billy Wilder scrambling with days to spare. William Holden was Hollywood's forgotten man. So who replaced Clift? William Holden. Basically, Hollywood's has been at 31 years old. Holden had burst onto the scene with Golden Boy in 1939. Then, he went to World War II, came back, and nothing. His post-war films were forgettable. The industry had moved on. When Wilder was forced to consider Paramount's contract players, he settled on Holden almost by default. Here's the kicker. Holden was paid $39,000 for the role. Montgomery Clift had been offered $60,000. Holden was literally the bargain basement replacement. But here's where it gets beautiful. Sunset Boulevard didn't just revive Holden's career, it made him one of the biggest stars of the 1950s. He won an Oscar for Stalag 17, starred in The Bridge on the River Kwai and Network. Joe Gillis was supposed to be a failure who becomes a kept man before getting murdered. William Holden was a failure who became a legend. The irony? He died in 1981. Gloria Swanson outlived him by 2 years. Mae West and every silent star said no. Before Gloria Swanson, Billy Wilder wanted Mae West to play Norma Desmond. When they approached her with the script, she rejected it flat out. Her reason? She refused to play a washed-up, forgotten movie star. Mae West's ego was intact. She wasn't interested in self-mockery. After West, Wilder went through silent film royalty. Every major silent film star saw the script as an insult. Gloria Swanson almost said no to the screen test. When George Cukor suggested Gloria Swanson, she was living in New York, working in radio and television. Unlike Norma Desmond, Swanson had accepted that Hollywood didn't want her anymore. But when Billy Wilder asked her to do a screen test, Swanson was insulted. She'd later recalled, "Me? Test? I was revolted. I'd made 20 films for Paramount. Why do they want me to audition?" At the peak of her career in the 1920s, she received 10,000 fan letters per week. She'd been in movies since she was 15. And now, some hotshot director wanted her to prove she could still act? George Cukor convinced her. He told Swanson this was the role she'd be remembered for. He even joked that he'd personally shoot her if she didn't take it. Swanson reluctantly agreed, and when Wilder saw the footage, he knew he'd found his Norma Desmond. Gloria Swanson stayed in character 24/7. According to Swanson's daughter, Michelle Amon, her mother stayed in character throughout the entire shoot. When Gloria came home after filming, she spoke like Norma Desmond. She moved like Norma Desmond. For months, Michelle lived with both her mother and this delusional silent film queen. On the last day of shooting, Swanson drove home and announced, "There were only 3 of us in it now. Norma Desmond had finally taken her leave, but here's the one moment she broke character. On the day they filmed the Charlie Chaplin imitation scene, everyone wore Chaplin bowler hats. The next day, they had to film the monkey's funeral. Just before cameras rolled, William Holden showed Swanson the stuffed monkey prop, wearing a tiny Chaplin bowler hat. Swanson laughed so hard it took about an hour to get her makeup repaired. It's the only documented time Norma Desmond ceased to exist. The mansion had its own tragic history. That crumbling mansion wasn't actually on Sunset Boulevard. The real address was 641 South Irving Boulevard, and it had its own dark past. Built in the early 1920s for $250,000, the mansion sat empty for over a decade, earning the nickname the Phantom House. In 1936, oil magnate J. Paul Getty bought it as part of a divorce settlement. Here's the best part. The house didn't have a swimming pool. When Billy Wilder chose it, Getty's ex-wife agreed to rent it on one condition. They had to build her a pool, and if she didn't like it, they'd have to remove it. Paramount built it. She liked it. And that pool became the site of cinema's most iconic opening shot. William Holden floating face down, dead, narrating his own murder. In 1957, the mansion was demolished for a 22-story office building that housed Getty Oil. Erich von Stroheim and Swanson had fired each other. The casting of Erich von Stroheim as Max was Billy Wilder being absolutely diabolical. In 1928, Gloria Swanson produced and starred in Queen Kelly, directed by von Stroheim. Von Stroheim was notorious for going massively over budget. Midway through, with over $800,000 spent, Swanson fired him. The film was never completed as intended. For over 20 years, no American had seen Queen Kelly. The failure ended von Stroheim's directing career. He'd been reduced to playing bit parts, often as Nazis. Then, Billy Wilder reunited them. Not only did he cast von Stroheim as Norma's former director turned servant, but he used actual footage from Queen Kelly in the movie. When Norma screens her old films for Joe, we see the never-before-seen footage, directed by the man now playing her butler. Von Stroheim even operates the projector. The symbolism is suffocating. A once great director literally projecting his own failure onto the screen. Von Stroheim hated his goddamned Butler role. Despite the brilliant metacasting, Erich von Stroheim wasn't thrilled. For the rest of his life, he referred to Max as that goddamned Butler role. When he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars, von Stroheim was livid. He considered himself far too big a star for such an insult. There's documentation that he threatened to sue over the nomination. Most actors would kill for an Oscar nomination. Von Stroheim was genuinely offended. The original opening was a disaster. The version you know starts with Holden's corpse floating in a pool. That wasn't Billy Wilder's original plan. The first cut opened in a morgue. Joe Gillis's body is laid out with a toe tag, reading homicide. He starts chatting with other corpses, all fellow murder victims, before recounting his story. Wilder held a preview in Evanston, Illinois. When that morgue scene played, the audience burst out laughing. They couldn't tell if they were watching a dark comedy or a serious drama. Second screening in Poughkeepsie, same reaction. Third screening in Great Neck, more laughter. The morgue scene was killing the movie. In January 1950, 6 months before release, Wilder reluctantly cut it and filmed a new opening using just the pool scene. The morgue scene was entirely written by Billy Wilder. Charles Brackett thought it was too morbid. Brackett was right. Sometimes the best creative decisions are the ones you kill. Louis B. Mayer wanted Wilder tarred and feathered. When Paramount held a private Hollywood screening in April 1950, the reaction was mixed. Barbara Stanwyck was so moved by Gloria Swanson's performance that she knelt down and kissed the hem of Swanson's skirt. And then there was Louis B. Mayer. The head of MGM, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, was furious. He confronted Billy Wilder in the lobby. Mayer screamed, "You should be tarred and feathered and run out of Hollywood." Nancy Olson said friends told her Wilder simply told Mayer, "Go fuck yourself." Regardless of which version you believe, one thing is clear. Sunset Boulevard had struck a nerve. Hollywood's most powerful executives saw themselves in that mansion, trapped in the past, delusional, and terrified of being forgotten. The script was called A Can of Beans. Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett knew they were playing with fire. A movie that shows Hollywood as vain, cruel, and cannibalistic? The studio would kill it, so they lied. The original scripts were printed with the title A Can of Beans. When Paramount executives asked what Wilder was working on, he told them he was adapting a short story called A Can of Beans. Wilder also feared the censors. Instead of submitting the full script, he sent them a few pages at a time. By the time anyone realized what he was actually making, it was too late. The most acidic, devastating critique of Hollywood ever filmed, and they thought it was going to be about beans. The Waxworks were real silent film stars. Remember the bridge game scene? When Joe encounters Norma's friends, he calls them the Waxworks, ghosts from Hollywood's past, playing cards in a decaying mansion. They weren't actors playing silent film stars, they were silent film stars. Billy Wilder didn't just make a movie about forgotten Hollywood, he hired forgotten Hollywood. He gave them one last moment in the spotlight, even if that spotlight was shining on their own obsolescence. Swanson performed the final scene barefoot. That iconic final scene, Norma descending her grand staircase, completely lost in delusion, almost didn't happen. Gloria Swanson realized the night before that she'd have to walk down the narrowest side of the staircase. The steps were too narrow for high heels, and she couldn't watch where she was placing her feet because her character had to gaze at the cameras below. So Swanson kicked off her heels and played the entire scene barefoot. She was terrified of tripping. Billy Wilder played music on set to keep Swanson in the right emotional state. What music? Dance of the Seven Veils from the opera Salome, the same character Norma believes she's playing. When Swanson finished, she burst into tears. The crew applauded. Wilder threw a party for her immediately afterward. He knew they'd just captured something special. That final line, "All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up," has been quoted more than almost any line in film history. And Gloria Swanson delivered it in bare feet, terrified she'd fall, with opera music playing off camera. Wilder and Brackett never worked together again. Sunset Boulevard was Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett's 17th screenplay collaboration. They'd been Hollywood's happiest couple for over a decade, writing Ninotchka and The Lost Weekend. It was also their last. During the writing of Sunset Boulevard, Wilder and Brackett feuded constantly. Charles Brackett was paid $130,000 for producing. Wilder got $211,000 for writing, plus $90,000 for directing. That pay gap might explain the tension. Swanson couldn't escape Norma Desmond. After Sunset Boulevard, Gloria Swanson was offered numerous scripts. She turned almost all of them down. Her reason? They were all poor imitations of Norma Desmond. Swanson told interviewers she could imagine a career that would eventually reduce her to playing a parody of a parody. She refused to become a joke, so she virtually retired from films. Her final screen appearance was in Airport 1975, playing herself. By then, Gloria Swanson was Norma Desmond in the public consciousness. She couldn't escape the role that defined her career and ruined it. The irony is suffocating. Norma Desmond was trapped by her past fame, unable to move forward. Gloria Swanson became trapped by playing that woman. Life imitating art, imitating life.
Max! Max!
The All About Eve Showdown. 1950 was the year Hollywood looked at itself in the mirror. Two films dominated the Oscars, Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve, both ruthless examinations of showbiz. All About Eve took Best Picture. Sunset Boulevard was nominated for 11 Oscars, including all 4 acting categories. One of only 3 films ever to achieve that. But it won only 3: Best Screenplay, Best Art Direction, and Best Score. William Holden knew what it was. A few years after Sunset Boulevard, an aspiring actor asked William Holden what it took to make it in Hollywood. Holden's response was perfect. "You have to have it." The young actor asked, "What's it?" Holden replied, "It is Sunset Boulevard." He wasn't wrong. Before 1950, Holden was struggling. By 1956, he was the top box office attraction in America, all because Billy Wilder took a chance on a forgotten actor to play a forgotten screenwriter in a movie about forgotten stars. The film cost $1.75 million, made them millionaires. Sunset Boulevard had a production budget of $1,750,000, substantial for 1950, but not extravagant. It grossed around $1,020,000 during its initial 7-week run at Radio City Music Hall alone. By the end of 1950, it had earned $2,350,000 at the US box office. By 1960, after re-releases and international distribution, the film had returned $5 million. The real profit, though, was cultural. Sunset Boulevard changed what movies could say about the industry that made them. Every dark showbiz film since, from The Player to The Disaster Artist, owes a debt to Sunset Boulevard, the last major film shot on Nitrate stock. Here's a piece of cinema history. Sunset Boulevard was the last major American feature film shot on Nitrate stock. Nitrate film was notoriously unstable. It deteriorated over time and was highly flammable. Entire studio archives burned to the ground in the silent era. By 1950, the industry was transitioning to safety film. Billy Wilder shot on Nitrate because it produced a richer, more luminous black and white image. That gorgeous, deep contrast, you see, that's partly the film stock, but it also means Sunset Boulevard is literally one of the last artifacts of an era, the perfect medium for a movie about the death of the silent film age. The technology itself was dying as they filmed. Everything in this movie is about obsolescence and decay, down to the celluloid it was printed on. But here's the thing. Sunset Boulevard is more than just a savage takedown of Hollywood. It's a film about broken dreams. Nearly every character has unrealized ambitions. The aging actress, the struggling writer, the unloved ex-husband turned servant. That's why this film connected so deeply with audiences. It made them reflect on their own lives, their own compromises, their own fading dreams. And it's why, in 1989, Sunset Boulevard was among the very first group of 25 films selected for preservation in the National Film Registry, deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. 75 years later, the film remains devastatingly relevant. Social media has just made us all Norma Desmond, desperate for attention, trapped in our own curated past, confusing followers with fans. What classic film noir should we cover next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. If you loved learning about Sunset Boulevard's twisted backstory, hit that like button and subscribe for more dark Hollywood history.